All right, what is up, everybody? This is digital editor Chase Doak of the Billings Gazette. Today, March 1st, 2021, is a special day for us at the Billings Gazette because it's the 25th birthday of the Billings Gazette website. And I should stop myself right there because I'm not being exactly honest. The Gazette website actually launched on a leap year. So its birthday was on February 29th, 1996, and not on March 1st, but this is the closest we can get. So I thought it would be a fun chance for us to kind of revisit some of the old iterations of the Gazette website, and we actually have the technology that allows us to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to try to walk through as best I can. Some of the elements of the old websites are going to be broken, but I think it's still going to be fun. It's going to be a nostalgic trip down memory lane for some of you who grew up in the 1990s or were around during the early days of widespread internet use. So here we go.
Welcome.
All right, so as you can see, I've got my AOL up here. Through the magic of time travel, we've brought back America Online here. That's a lie. This is just a simulator, but it does a good job of capturing the feel of the old AOL experience. So we're going to bring up the earliest version of the Gazette website that is archived on archive.org. And if you're not familiar with archive.org, it's a website where it's run by the Internet Archive, which they have since 1996, ironically, archived web pages across the internet, and that is what allows us to go back and actually look at some of these old websites as close to what they looked like back in the day as we can get. So this is the earliest version of the Billings Gazette website, launched on February 29th, 1996. You'll see the earliest version we have here is actually from October of 1996. The Internet Archive didn't actually launch until after the Gazette website did. So that was, I believe, around May of 1996. But this is the earliest version that we've got. You can see there's some nice, web-safe colors going on here for all you old-timey web developers out there. The color palette back then was a little bit limited, so you'll see a lot of very vibrant colors going on here. But anyways, this is the earliest version we've got of the Gazette website. And as I scroll through here, you'll see it was a very simple website. Obviously, web design was kind of in its infancy back then. It was about 5 years old at this point, HTML. So it was still pretty limited in exactly what you could do. So this really looks like an old website, but it's with the simulator, you can see that the text is a lot smoother than what you probably would have seen back then. So it's not exactly the same experience, but this is still fun for me. I grew up here in Billings, and I've always been a computer nerd, and so I really grew up with this website, and it's just fun for me to see everything. So I'm just going to click around to a few of these pages, and hopefully we don't run into any, inappropriate archived pages from after the website launched. One of the things I will note is you'll see in the address here, the Gazette's website didn't actually launch at billingsgazette.com to begin with. It was actually part of collaborative website called Infinet that hosted a lot of newspaper websites. And I'll actually give you just a brief intro to that in a second here. But that's why this address up here, which is what was archived by archive.org, that's why it's not billingsgazette.com up here. But only this first version appeared on Infinet. So you can see we had our sports, region, business, and computing news Computing news was all the rage back in the 90s. So we actually had a dedicated computing news section on the website. You will not find that on today's BillingsGazette.com, but you could back then. And when you bring up the website, it was actually just one story, and I believe this was the front page story every day is what you would land on when you would get to the home page. But you can actually go through to some of the other sections. It will take a little while, so we get to watch that nice AOL animation up there. So you can see it was really only about one story per section at the time. So it was very limited, but still, this was, 1996, and the number of online readers was pretty low at the time, and you can just kind of see how limited it was. We did have this nice navigation at the bottom. I'm not sure if it actually had this duplicate down below, but back then it was very common to have these sort of sliced images as your navigation, and so that's what we had. We did have a weather and opinion section as well, and a few other ones there. As you can see on the homepage, if we go back, here's a broken image. You can actually see that I believe it was on one of these days. You can actually see down here, we would offer the previous week's worth of home pages down here, so you could actually look at them. Kind of like what we do with the e-edition these days, but it didn't really mirror the printed paper like what you see in the e-edition today. But I think it was on Tuesday or Monday that we had actually the oldest story that we can get to. Okay, so it was not Tuesday. You can see some mentions of former Governor Mark Roscoe in there. And it wasn't Monday either. Wow. Okay. This is actually pretty blazing fast compared to what we had back in 1996 when it was all dial-up. And there we go. So the earliest version we had was from October 23rd of 1996, and you can see some nice spinning graphics there. Whether you pronounce it GIF or GIF, you're going to see a lot of those as I walk through here. But here's the earliest story, and it's actually kind of amazing. We've got the photo itself archived here. So you can just kind of see how it was styled and how it looked. And a lot of these stories, if you wanted to actually read some of these old stories, I should mention that you can actually use the archives on our website if you go to billingsgazette.com/archives, and we have a deal with newspapers.com to offer some discounted subscriptions to their web service, which actually has basically scanned copies of our old printed papers, and you can go through them, and they're searchable, and it's a really great tool. And so I just wanted to lay that out there for any of you history fans who are looking to look back on some of these old stories. So as promised, I'm going to show you what Infonet looked like, and it's going to try and find the version that was closest to the time that this launched. All right, so you can see this is a very old-fashioned website. But back then they had this newsstand, and it was actually a way to direct people to various newspaper websites across the country. And you can see here it's a pretty large list and pretty widespread, but at the time Billings was the only Montana paper that was included in this Infonet listing. I don't personally remember this website all that well, so I don't really know how it worked and if there were other alternatives, but this is how the Gazette got online, and it was a member of this website. But not only that, we actually had this Big Sky Wire website, and that was really the landing page if you wanted to get to the Billings Gazette. Big Sky Wire, we got some incredible graphics right here. You can see this jet flying across. Big Sky Wire offered a lot of Montana and Wyoming area information, not just the Billings Gazette online, but also a Yellowstone National Park online guide. There was this All About Billings guide. I'll just click through to that real quick and hope that it's an appropriate website. But back then, the internet was really used for information. That was the big draw. It was the World Wide Web, and you could go on and you could learn about things and get information. And obviously, that's still the case today. But back then, a lot of websites really wanted to provide information that you probably could have found in books or, in the phone book. But that's really what this Billings answer book was all about, and it really just provided information about various things in the Billings area. And of course, back then we had to teach people how to navigate. And there were a few things I should note. I'm using a scroll wheel right now. Back then, you would not have had a scroll wheel likely. You might have if you had a really nice mouse. But in many cases, you were kind of limited to using the up and down arrows and just dragging this. And so on a lot of these pages, you'll actually see a top button appear to help people get back to the top of the page. We also had an online store back then, this marketplace. It was brand new. Do not call this phone number. I don't know where it goes to. I think it's probably still one of our live phone numbers, but I don't know whose it is. But we did actually have a page where you could go and purchase books. You still had to call in to buy these, but you could do that. And we had all of these various books. And some of these, believe it or not, we still have a few copies left. So if you're interested, keep an eye out because we have an exciting announcement to make here in the coming weeks. But I know for a fact we have at least a few copies of this Year of the Grizz book, which was brand new back then, all about the 1995 University of Montana NCAA championship. So if that is something that interests you, just keep an eye out and you'll see in the coming weeks how you can order that. So we'll go back to the Gazette website just for a second. I just wanted to take one last look at this magnificent website. We were all about lasers and bright colors back then, and that's just kind of how it was. So this is how the Billings Gazette website launched in 1996. I'm going to take you to the next version of the website, which was actually launched in 1998. And this is the earliest capture. Actually, this is not the earliest capture. The one that was captured was in December of 1998, but it had a lot of broken images when I first loaded it, and this one does too, but not quite as many. So I wanted to at least give you an idea of what it actually looked like. You can see some of our ads are still visible on here. This one's kind of amazing because it's still called Billings Clinic, Deaconess Billings Clinic. You can see a Planet Smoothie ad up here. And these were all created in-house here at the Gazette by artists. So all of these animated images that you're seeing, those were all done here. You can see that the logo changed quite a bit from the first version to this one. And this one is actually using frames, which was something that was really popular in the 1990s before we had what's called cascading style sheets that you would use to sort of position elements on a web page. We had these frames, and you can actually go forward and back within a specific frame, and all of the other frames within the page stay static and don't change. So it was really like having multiple web pages within a single page. This one's kind of amazing because it's actually got several photos. Some of you might actually recognize yourself or friends in here. If you do, let us know in the comments. I don't personally recognize any of these kids, but they would have been about the same age as me or maybe even a little bit older. Um, I think I was about 12 or 13 at the time that this version of the website was online. Yeah, so this was from 1999. So I would have been 13 years old. So you can see we had a few more sections laid out here in the navigation, and we did have a dedicated classified section. So that's pretty amazing from back in 1999. Takes a little while for these archived pages to load, but we'll give it a second here. Oh, it's going to try and redirect me now. There we go. The wonders of the internet. Oh, and we arrived at a dead page. So sometimes this happens when you're in the Wayback Machine. That's the official name for the Internet Archive's web archive. And I should say that Internet Archive's really amazing. They've also archived things like old recordings. Oh no, this is part of our next version of the website. They've archived old recordings of like bootlegs, and they're legally done. So if you're into live music recordings, you can find a lot of artists on there. They also archive a lot of software, really old software from the 80s up through a portion of the 90s. And, they've kind of existed in a gray area at times when it comes to archiving copyrighted content, and they have run into some issues. But for the most part, they exist as a means of archiving old computer content that otherwise would have been lost to history and you'd never see it again. So the work that they do is really amazing, and the fact that we're able to go back and look at these old Gazette websites, to me, it's just really impressive that that's something that's still available. Okay, so we've got a live opinion page here. By this version of the website, we were finally starting to get multiple stories into each section. You can see there's only one right here, but if I were to go to let's try to pull up the sports page here, and hopefully it'll give us a few other options. But yeah, so you can see we've got a whole list here. Here's a Bulls story from back when they played at the Metra. These are just pieces of history from the Gazette, and it's just really amazing to be able to go back and click on these things and see them as they were back in the late 90s. So we had an outdoors section, the weekly magazine. There was a community calendar, I believe is what this was. Oh, no, that's what this is. We'll see what community was. So it looks like it was things like volunteer opportunities and a little bit more of the community news. Still had the computing section, and our Enjoy brand, which still exists to this day. It's our arts and entertainment brand. We actually have a Facebook page for that if you guys are interested in following the arts and entertainment scene here in Billings. I know here in the pandemic it's been a little bit quiet, but we still have a lot of great things that are going on here in the Magic City. So go follow Billings Gazette Enjoy on Facebook if you haven't already. So yeah, this is the second version of the Billings Gazette website. We're going to move on to the next one, which really was more of just a minor update, but I think it's worth showing some of these just so that you get an idea for how this website evolved. So this one's still very similar. In fact, it still has the Planet Smoothie ad up there. But we were finally starting to use some image navigation here. I think if I roll over these, it's probably... Oh, I'm amazed. These are working. They're not really doing anything, but these are all images. These aren't text that I could select or anything like that. These are cut out images, and that's really the biggest update in this version of the website. But you'll also see a lot more advertising. And we were getting close to the 2000 election back then, so that's what this campaign 2000 is. But yeah, and here's one of those back to top buttons that I was telling you about. And sure enough, it clicks us right back to the top. So yeah, we've got a few different things. And at that time, back in 2000 when this launched, we were starting to get some more interactive content. These were probably Java applets or Macromedia Shockwave or something like that. I'm sure they don't work, but that's what we had back then. These are actually some decent layouts that they had back then with a few sidebar elements that we really try to do more and more of those these days. Here's a nice illustration. I don't know if this was done in-house or if it was clip art, but yeah, so this is, the 2000 version of the website. I think we would call this version 3.0 of BillingsGazette.com. And at this point, it was BillingsGazette.com. So there it is. We're not going to spend too much time on this one, but I just wanted to give you a quick look at that. Some of these sliced images didn't really archive all that well, and so that's why you'll see some of these broken images. But moving on, we're getting into the website, the Billings Gazette website that I would have seen as a teenager in high school, and probably used at times for various research projects or whatever. So this is version 4.0 of the Billings Gazette website. The header up here appears to be broken. Oh, we've got some more broken images, but you can see that the color palette changed quite a bit, and it's pretty different from what we saw before. But we've got actually a headline list now, which is kind of nice. It's actually broken down into sections on the homepage, which is closer to what you see today. And we've got a featured image, which is kind of nice. And we were really pushing those interactives then too. Oh, we've got some rollover effects on this navigation. So it's the same logo, just over a blue background. I don't know if I'm really on board with having this yellow and red logo on a blue background as a designer, but it was the early 2000s. It was a different age. So it looks like we kind of cut down on the sections from the previous version to this one. Oh, no, we didn't. Here we are. We've got even more featured sections over here. And not only did we have Enjoy, we had the Daily Enjoy. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and let's see what it looks like. All right. Well, it looks like we maybe had a TV guide on here. Let's just give it a look. Oh, it's a dead one. Oh, well. And I just got a pop-up off screen. Back in the days of pop-ups. So this had a past issues feature where you could actually go in and search for past ones. This does not actually work. At least I don't think it does. We're going to just give it a try just to see. But no, it doesn't. Yep. Some of these pages are dead. A lot of the pages that required kind of what we call server-side scripting, like PHP, Perl, things like that, those didn't really archive all that well. And so that's why some of these things that had interactive elements where the viewer could go in and actually select things and do this kind of thing where you select a date and try to pull something up from the server. Those ones didn't really archive all that well, so that's why those pages are probably broken. So anyways, there's that version of the website. Let's see if we can hop through to a different one and see if there's a better version that's got those images in it. Doesn't look like it. And for all I know, some of these elements may have been, Flash widgets or whatever you want to call them, Adobe Flash, Macromedia. I think it was Macromedia back then that owned Flash. So that may be why they're not showing up. Flash isn't supported anymore, which might be a bummer for some of you who grew up in the late 90s and early 2000s playing Flash games. Sadly, you cannot play them unless you find a version of it for download out there. All right, we're going to move on to the next version of this website. And this one is from 2002. We launched version 5 of the Gazette website. And I believe this one was another big change, yeah. So the layout's very similar. We've got left and right columns, but we're back to a white background. Oh, we've got a weather forecast in there for the first time. That's kind of nice. I'm not sure what's going on with this underlining thing. I think it's probably an issue. This may have been the first version of the website to use cascading style sheets. They were really new back then in the early 2000s. This one's got a nice big header on it, which is kind of cool. This logo is a lot closer to what we had in the printed paper at the time, including the Gazette Sun, which a lot of us grew up seeing on the front page. So this one has some of those kind of glossy looks to it, thanks to Apple back then in the iMac early days when they had those really glossy, colorful computers, and they were all about these really shiny buttons and things like that. So you can kind of see how that, influenced the design of the Gazette website back then. Some of these things are a little bit broken, as you can see, but for the most part, you can see how this website has begun to evolve over the years into different homepage sections and a lot more content and a few more ads, and looks like we were trying to push a little bit more on the photo galleries at the time. This probably wouldn't have been all that common back in the time of the earliest Gazette website, just because we were mostly on dial-up, and trying to load all of these images would have been just a real pain. So this actually opened in a pop-up. I'm going to bring it in here, and you can see that this AOL emulator doesn't really hold true to its windows when you have a pop-up. But let's try to open up one of these photos. Oh, it's broken. Well, if you were one of those Legion baseball players back then, my brother may have been in some of these photos. In fact, that might be him right there. He was playing for the Royals back in those days. So anyways, yeah, here's version 5 of the website. And one of the cool things about this iteration of the website was we actually had an evening edition at one point. And I'm going to bring that up real quick. And it looks really close to the same style, but it has its own evening edition logo. So let's see here if it actually loads. Oh, here we can see a broken Flash plugin. So here we go. Here's a BillingsGazette.com evening edition logo. This is not something we have done since then. I'm sure it was a lot of work to get it up and make sure that the new evening edition every day got up at the right time. And I don't know, maybe it was all done on the server side, but this was, let's see, from December of 2005. So this would have been later in the lifespan of this version of the website. But you can see they were starting to push on Flash a lot more for things like ads. And our weird underlining issue is gone when I hover over things, but it seems to be just permanent on everything else. So the other thing notable about this time in the Gazette website was we were starting to launch blogs, and you can see some of our old blogs down here. We had a Heights Happenings blog. Let's go ahead and click on that one. I kind of want to see. And we're also starting to get website search, which was kind of nice. We used to sort of depend on third-party search programs like Yahoo and Google to do search. That's changed a bit over the years, but so here's the Heights Happenings blog. So you may remember some of these. I wonder if these comments are still on there, but I'm not going to click through to them because I don't know how appropriate they will be for this walkthrough. But yeah, blogs were just kind of becoming a really popular thing back then, and we had a prep sports blog, and this blog actually is what led to the birth of our current sports website, 406 Sports. And if you haven't gone to 406 Sports before and you're a Montana sports fan, please go to that website. We share it with our sister newspapers across the state of Montana and a few other partners outside of our company. And it's really designed as a statewide one-stop for all of your Montana sports news. And that's at 406mt, as in Montana, sports.com. And you can find us on Facebook and Twitter as well, and on Instagram. And Lindsay Rossmiller, who manages that website and its social media accounts, does an amazing job. And so, please go out and follow that. But you can see what gazprepsports.com looked like back in the day. This was a blog, and back when Ed West was here, and Greg. Oh my gosh, Greg. So Greg is still around, and he does not look this young today, but he's still a young guy. Don't get me wrong, but things have changed. Mike Shirting is still around as well, and he really looks very similar. And so there's our old sports editor, Mike Zimmer. So yeah, at this point, we were also starting to push video a little bit more. So I don't think that these will actually play because, they were all done in Flash. But, it'd be really fun to look at some of those old videos, I'm sure. But so that's a look at one of our old blogs. 501 was sort of our entertainment blog back then. The 501, of course, coming from, you get done with work at 5 and go out and have fun at 501. But we changed that one a long time ago. But like I said, you can still follow the Gazette's Enjoy page on Facebook and get that kind of news. RSS was also a newer technology back at this point. So for those of you who don't know, RSS, it's still around, but it allows you to get a feed for a newsreader or for a different web project. We still use RSS feeds for various things on our website, actually, but that's what it was used for back in the day. If you had an Apple newsreader or something like that, you could drop in a feed of exactly the type of content that you wanted, and that's what that was all about. All right, so we're going to move on to the next version. We're at, we'll call this one version 6. I think this evening edition was maybe, a 5.1. Whoops. Learn how to use the internet, Chase. You've only been doing it for 26 years now. All right, so this will be version 6, launched in 2006. And this one's going to be a lot closer to what you see today. This was actually the Gazette website that I remember going to when I was in college for most of my college career. We had a little bit better CSS, those cascading style sheets. We used those for some of these navigation items. Classifieds, homes, jobs, cars, all of those things were much easier to find back then on the website, and we try to help you get to those today. A lot more Flash, but yeah, you can also see there were just a lot more headlines and just more information in general in this version of the website. And we were really pushing multimedia, photo galleries, and video back then. And we still do that, but we've been trying to do a lot more video, and you can find plenty of photo galleries on BillingsGazette.com today. But back then, they were becoming more and more popular as people got onto broadband internet. And so that's why you'll see a lot more of those as we move through these different versions of the website. We also had polling abilities back then. Let's see if the results are available. Nope. Well, here's what appears to be an e-edition. But when I click on it, there's a dead pop-up that came up. So yeah. And it looks like we actually had broadband and dial-up versions of a few different things. And this was sort of our strange news section. I remember going to the Gazette website specifically for this section when I was a teenager, just because it was always really strange news. But these days, this is what we would typically just put out on social media. It probably wouldn't show up on our homepage. The other new thing with this version was podcasts. So we were finally jumping on board the podcast train. By 2006, iPods had been out for a good 5 years already, but we finally had some podcasts in this version of the website. So yeah, not a whole lot to say about this. I'll try clicking through to one of these stories. Maybe not the homicide. Okay, so this was from April of 2006. So I'm not exactly sure which tornadoes these are referring to. Not the Father's Day tornado. Well, that didn't work. Oh, this was an AP story. All right, well, we've gone back a little bit too far. Take me forward. All right. So a lot of this is national news. Oh, we've got some Ted Kaczynski news. This would have been the 10th anniversary of the Unabomber being arrested. We're coming up on the 20 years right now. These are all dead links. I'm so sad. So, well, we'll move on to the next version. You guys are probably getting bored with this already, but this is fun for me. All right, so this will be version 7, launched in 2009, and this was actually the version of the website that existed when I was hired by the Billings Gazette. So we'll bring it up. And I did try to go through and pick out links that I thought had live images, but I guess I did not do a great job of that, so I apologize. But if any of you are interested, just go to archive.org and in the Wayback Machine at the very top of the site, just type in billingsgazette.com or whatever website you if you want to go and look at your old GeoCities website, it may exist on there if you remember the address. So it's still taking a while to load, but yep, here we go. This is the version that many of you may remember. Back when we had the red, and this one actually was using Yahoo search back then. You can see it's quite a bit wider, so it doesn't really fit in this old AOL simulator all that well. But we had this, what we call a carousel right here, where you could actually go through the different stories. Doesn't look like it's loading all of them in, but you can at least see kind of what it was doing. And this was for the first time when we were kind of starting to use sort of trending stories. So we were keeping track of which ones had the most comments and which ones were being read the most, using, I assume, probably Google Analytics or part of our content management system to track that stuff. And you could actually see, how many people had commented on a story. And it was sort of our first foray into trending news. So, and this also would have been during the time where social media was really popular with people of all ages. So I think, we had some social elements on that previous version, but this one was really the first social media-centric version of the website. And I'm going to see if we can actually go through to one of these stories, and it may actually have some old share buttons and things like that. This is from 2009, so let's see. And of course, we have a pretty large social media presence for the Billings Gazette today, so if you haven't followed us on Facebook or on Twitter or on Instagram or on YouTube for that matter, we're on all of those and we remain active. And so, please, please go out and follow us, give us a like on Facebook, just get involved and stay up to date with the latest news. So I thought that we had social media sharing buttons back then. Now we have print and email and share this. That's what it is. So I don't know what's going to happen when I click this, but I'm going to click it anyways because I want to see. Nothing. Absolutely nothing happened. I think it broke the page. But share this was a means of us having kind of a little pop out where you would actually select which social media networks you wanted to share to. But yeah, you could add us to your My Yahoo back then. That I think is probably a dead service at this point. But we had online print services and things like that available. Of course, we do today. We also had things like, there's our social media buttons, but we had text alerts. And sadly, we discontinued those a while ago, but there have been some talks to bring back a few of those features. But what you can do if you want alerts on your phone, we, of course, have apps available. There's an app for the Billings Gazette, and there's also an app for 406 Sports if you want to go download that. And you can follow us and get push alerts to your smartphone. So, but we actually had a mobile version of the website back then because apps were kind of in their infancy. And this one actually came up in a new window. Let's see. Let's see if it actually loads here. It doesn't look like it's going to. Oh, there it is. So a very limited version of the website for your old version 1 iPhone or your BlackBerry or whatever you were using back in 2009. We had an outdoors blog back then. We discontinued that, but if you go to Facebook and search for Montana Untamed, that is a Facebook page that's run by our outdoors editor, Brett French, and you can follow that page, and he'll share the latest outdoors news across the state and the region with you. So this was, getting a lot closer to the website that we have today. It used the same content management system that we're using today. And so it's all of this content is still available if you go to the current Gazette website. But we're going to move on to version 8. It's getting long, I know, but I'm having fun. So version 8 launched in 2012. And this would have been the first version that I helped design. I'm no longer part of the design team that does these, but back then I was one of the template designers, and we called this one, I believe, Templates 2.0. So in spite of the fact that it's version 8.0 of the website, it was Templates 2.0, which was sort of a way of us making a consistent style across our various Lee newspaper brands. So you can see we had a weather forecast back then. It was very prominent up here in the middle. A lot more sections. A lot of this was kind of overkill, and we've simplified quite a bit since then. But we had a much larger carousel here. And you can see some of this stuff is a little bit broken. But there was a much greater emphasis on social media. So you could actually go and follow the Gazette. And wow, this was back, 2012. And we had less than 19,000 likes. We're now at 128,000. So things have changed quite a bit since then. We had Google Plus back then. Yet another service that's discontinued, and Pinterest. And we did, we added a Facebook trending block here that actually used Facebook analytics, but that's something that's not actually possible these days, I don't think. But we also had a widget here to bring in tweets. That's blank on this archived version, but and then we actually had videos, and if I click on these, they were still using Flash back then, so they're all dead. These videos are still available in our archives, and you may be seeing a few of these in the future. I've been looking at sharing some of those old videos. But yeah, now we're starting to see some familiar names. There's Danny Aragon. So, and there was a greater emphasis on calendar events, and I believe I had some input on the design of this block back then. But so anyways, that was version 8 of the website. I'm gonna just move straight on into version 9, which is a lot closer. I believe version 9 was the first version that we had that used what we call responsive design. So now that people use many different devices, from smartphones to tablets to desktop computers, websites have to be able to respond to those different form factors or different sized devices. And that was one of the things that we focused on with this version, was making it work with all of the various devices. This one may have been a little bit, yeah, it looks like it was dependent on some off-site scripts and things like that, and so maybe there are a few elements that don't quite work. But for the most part, this looks like it was probably about the tablet size here in this fake AOL. So let's see if we can expand it a little so it looks a little bit closer to what we would see on an average desktop. There we go. So yeah, this was not too long ago, 2015 to 2017 we had this design. So a lot of what you'll see in here is actually still incorporated into today's design of the Gazette website. We still had a lot of sections in here, but I think we really tried to simplify things. You'll see Instagram for the first time. Let's see if I can click through to one of these. And we did have a trending block here, and that's what's not working. I think that was based on a different type of analytics that was not built into our content management system. And I don't actually know what, for all of you nerds, what rendering engine this is using. My guess is it's probably Chromium, which is what Google Chrome uses, in spite of the fact that it's got the Internet Explorer emblem up there. That was what actual AOL used back in the day, was Internet Explorer. This isn't going to work, is it? Oh, here we go. I just want to show what one of these article pages looks like. Yeah, so we had a few additional what we call flags up here, and so you can actually see those. And we had a carousel photo viewer that you can still see that, and we were still doing photo sales back then. We've since had to discontinue those, unfortunately. But yeah, this was also around the time when we started doing what's called long form story design. So when we had a few longer stories, we would sort of apply a special set of templates to it to make them look a little bit better. But this is not one of those designs. So yeah, there's version 9 of the BillingsGazette.com. We're going to move on to our last one before today's version, and this is actually version 10, which launched in 2017. I was not a part of designing this version of the website, but I was involved in getting it set up at the very least. And you can see, if you open up a page in the Wayback Machine on archive.org, it'll show you all of the times that it archived the page, and you can see this graph here shows how many times over a span of time it was archived, and so you can kind of see some dead spots in here, but recently you can see that it's archiving the page, many times, maybe even, several times a day. So that wasn't always the case. Okay, so this is, again, another responsive layout, and we're still using those today. We've got, there's a story about the Keystone, not the Keystone XL, but the existing Keystone leaking. So some of these news stories are still kind of in progress today. This isn't that long ago, just November of 2019. So not even 18 months ago, if my news is correct, or if my math is correct. But yeah. So a little bit darker design. We switched to using the yellow Gazette logo, but that's what that version looked like. And just for fun, we're going to bring up today's BillingsGazette.com in this fun AOL simulator. Oh, it opened in a new window. We didn't have tabs back then in the 1990s. We had new windows. So this is our current website. It's much lighter, and we actually, when we launched this, there was a bit of an effort to make the typography look a little bit closer to what we have in our printed product. And so that's actually what's going on here with this text. It's meant to have the look and feel of our printed paper. So we've scaled back on the trending stuff. Now it's just, the top 5 headlines of the day. And we've kind of cut down on the number of sections on the homepage just to make it a cleaner experience and make it a little bit easier to find the most important news of the day. But if you're looking for other sections, we've got a COVID-19 resources page. If you want to find like our photo galleries and videos and things, we do have a multimedia section. And if you're ever looking to, we get this a lot, but if you're ever looking to submit a news tip, we have actually a form where you can do that. And so I just wanted to point that out for everybody. So yeah, we've still got, many of those same sections that the website launched with, but they've either been expanded or maybe they've been modified just a little bit. The biggest addition that we've had over the years is the e-edition, and that's actually a digital version of the printed paper. It looks exactly like what goes out to front door steps and mailboxes in the morning. I'm not currently logged in, so I can't show you it exactly. I will click in, but you'll get the paywall. It is part of a paid subscription, but if you have a print subscription, you actually get unlimited digital access as well. And if you're looking to get rid of the print product, to save paper or whatever the reason is, you can switch to just using the e-edition, and you actually get it in your email inbox. So it's a really good way of transitioning to a digital product if that's what you want to do. If clicking around on the website isn't your cup of tea, the e-edition might be the best way to do that. So I hope you guys had some fun with this. I definitely brought back a lot of memories for me growing up as a kid in Billings and visiting the Gazette website as a youngster. So I hope a few more of you had the same nostalgic feelings that I did. And I hope that all of you enjoy our product, and we're always hoping that more and more of you will subscribe and become a member and help us support our local journalism efforts here in Billings and in Montana. So anyways, I hope you guys had fun strolling through the old BillingsGazette.com and pre-BillingsGazette.com, and I hope you guys all have a great day.
Goodbye.